Hi, and welcome to Personalizing an Underutilized ABM Asset, your website without overloading your team. My name's Guy Yalith, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Intellimize. For the last several years, I've been putting AI in the hands of marketers to help personalize web experiences for each unique visitor and account in the moment so they can drive more revenue, more customer signups, and more leads to sales. For me, that journey started years ago when I coded a rules-based expert system to design airplanes in college. I've also been a marketer and a product guy personalizing digital experiences across industries for the last 15 years while at Twitter, Yahoo, and Brightroll. During this session, we're going to talk about how to get more out of your website, moving more prospects further down the funnel, and delivering more leads to your sales team. Let's begin. What is ABM? ABM is account-based marketing, as everyone on this webinar knows, and it's focused on delivering personalized messages, personalized experiences, building on account-specific insights, delivering account-specific content and messages to drive maximum relevance. And it's targeted at specific accounts where you focus your resources on the prospects that are most likely to be impactful to your business. And in many ways, ABM parallels what we've all experienced as marketers in business-to-consumer marketing as it gravitates away from mass marketing towards one-to-one marketing. Both of them focus on the depth of the relationship and use deep understanding to personalize each interaction for every individual visitor. So are we doing this well today, and are we activating it in our digital channels like our website? Engagio spoke with a lot of ABM practitioners and found not really. We are not activating ABM digitally nearly enough. Just over half of ABM practitioners are creating online strategies for individual accounts to drive the leads they want to sales. Yet we say we're going to touch these prospects at every step of the funnel. Now we can go further and ask ourselves, hey, does this kind of personalization matter in general? Turns out it does. When 300 marketers were asked about the importance of personalization on advancing customer relationships, more than 4 out of 5 said, yes, it does, that it's strongly or extremely important to advancing relationships. Now, how good are we at it? And do our prospects expect it? Well, when those same 300 marketers were asked, almost 9 out of 10 said, yes, my prospects expect this, even in a B2B environment. We've all had our B2C consumer experiences shifted dramatically, in no small part thanks to our experiences with Amazon and Netflix, to expect experiences that are tailored to each one of us. Yet almost 7 out of 10 of us would say, we're not doing it right. We are not engaging our prospects where they are in their funnel with us, each one individually, yet that is so much the basis of account-based marketing. When it comes to applying it digitally, we've got room to grow. So how should we think about it? How should we think about the different levels of ABM as we're trying to activate them digitally? Well, Engagio has given this a bunch of thought. You can think about ABM as applying at different levels of scale based on how many prospects you're going after, and often that correlates with the size of the deal you're talking about. You know, from their clear and complete guide V2, Engagio said, hey, look, if you're doing true one-to-one marketing, you're talking about a handful of accounts, probably $1 million+ deal. There are many of us that are then doing sort of a few accounts at a time, you know, tens of them. You might be looking at a $100,000 deal to $1 million deal. And then you can apply these same principles more at scale to hundreds or thousands of accounts. I don't hear people talking about hundreds or thousands of accounts as ABM typically, yet when you think about activating ABM digitally, you can absolutely do that. You can absolutely tailor the experience for each individual prospect, even at that level. So what's holding us back from doing that today? Well, the most widespread thing we hear about ABM is that people think they're going to implement it as a bunch of rules, as a bunch of if this, then that statements. Respectfully, we think this approach leaves a lot of money on the table. And let's talk through how one might activate that digitally as an example to bring that to life. So here's an example. Engagio isn't doing any of the things on this or subsequent slides. I just mocked it up. If I show up from United Airlines office, you might show my company name or my title in the headline. You may choose to put my account executive's name in the call to action. And people often think about account-based marketing as this, as these rules. The entire discussion is about optimizing and personalizing the journey using if this, then that statements. And rules are great because you are treating different accounts differently. However, they don't scale. If you have 500 accounts or more, you've got a lot of rules to set up and to maintain. And most often, we as marketers top out at a few tens of rules. And so I believe rules are great, but that you can and should also use AI to enhance the account-based marketing prospect's journey. We believe you can and should expand the personalization you're doing with ABM with AI. Even for things you'd implement as rules, like in the upper left, welcoming that visitor by company name, you can use AI to figure out the right way to say it. Right? You may have 5 different ways to bake their company name into a headline. You can then go further and try a bunch of different things on a page in a digital experience to tailor that experience to each prospect. So maybe you want to stoke the competitive juices of me coming from United Airlines and show some of my competitors in a batch of logos, right? Maybe you're going to show me American and Delta and Southwest, in addition to some other logos. Maybe you're going to try to funnel me to talk to sales because this is one-to-one or one-to-few marketing, right? These are high-value deals, and you want to push me to talk to sales. Maybe you'll remember my previous behavior and show me content related to that. And you can use AI together with rules to try out all of these. You know, if you tried all the different combinations of the things on the page right now, you'd have 31,000 versions of the page. Okay, we as mere mortal humans are never going to go optimize across that many, but AI can, and create that one-to-one experience in a B2B environment on your website that, frankly, we can't do when we're going to go activate this in some other medium, right? It'd be really hard to have 31,000 versions of things in, like, direct mail or on a billboard. But on your website, you can. Now, what if we extend this to ABM at more scale when you've got hundreds or thousands of accounts? We think as you move to the 2 tiers at the bottom of that ABM chart where you've got more scale, there's even more opportunity to combine rules and AI to deliver the right experience for each unique account. There's practically no way to write a bunch of rules to serve every one of these accounts, but you can use AI to tailor that experience and pull from content that's more likely to resonate for them. So you're more likely, for example, the value prop at the bottom of the page, maybe you've got an SMB version of that. Or maybe you're going to show a bunch of logos, and because they're too small of a firm to identify where they are, you'll show a bunch of other SMB logos. Or maybe you'll talk about industry-specific value props because your reverse IP lookup isn't quite sure what company they are, but you know there's somebody you want to target. So I would humbly submit that ABM, when you activate it digitally on your website, should be implemented the way we all know with rules and complemented and expanded with AI so that you can provide that account-specific experience at scale. That's 1. 2, what about the rest of our traffic? We hear this all the time, that, you know, ABM is for my named accounts. And people kind of don't acknowledge the other large part of their traffic, the anonymous traffic that they get, which often is the large majority of their traffic. In fact, most of the time we see anonymous traffic being 98% of the visitors to a website. They're anonymous when they arrive. They're still unknown to you when they click away. And most of the ABM practitioners I speak with say, that's not my world. That is not the part of the experience that I'm going to go optimize. And I would suggest you're leaving money on the table. That you can apply many of these same techniques to that 98%, even when you don't know exactly who they are, to drive more people through your funnel to deliver leads to sales. Does that precisely fall within ABM? Maybe not, because you don't know who that account is. Does it achieve the same goals as ABM by filling more of your sales team's pipeline? Absolutely it does. Let's look at how that might happen. So with anonymous traffic, you can implement a bunch of rules and use AI to tailor the experience. And you don't know who they are, but you can infer a lot about them based on what they do on your site. For example, you can look at which product pages they visit and say, oh, they're probably interested in that product, especially if they visited it multiple times. On Engagio's site, the Solutions tab is really oriented by role. Great, I can figure out what role someone is based on where they go. I might infer industry or company size based on the case studies they visit. And regardless of the content on my site, I might infer what stage of the funnel they are based on their actions on my site. Right? If this is somebody's 4th or 5th time back at my site, I should probably get more aggressive in my calls to action, getting them to do the things I want them to do, whether that is talking to sales or doing something self-serve. And I can infer, oh, you know what, this person downloaded content, let me suggest a webinar. This person went to a webinar, let me suggest a demo. This person asked for a demo, let me put product comparison information in front of them. Following them where they are through the funnel, even though I may not know exactly which account they are, but you can do this at scale by inferring these things based on people's behavior and meeting them where they are account by account in their funnel with you. And so you can activate this same ABM mentality for your anonymous traffic with rules and AI. As you think about doing this, I would suggest you consider what assets you're going to create, what content are you going to invest the time and energy to add into those digital experiences. And I would suggest you tune that based on the ROI you expect. If you're right at that top of that ABM table before, and you're going after a handful of accounts, and they're worth an awful lot for you, you may create 100% personalized content and use that on the site. If you're going one level down and you've got tens of accounts, you may create an asset that you can tailor the last 20% of. It can feel personalized, even though it's not exactly built just for them, and all the way through to the other end of the spectrum where you've got evergreen content that can work for everyone, where you create it once and you can use it for thousands. And so I think it is helpful to have this as a mental model when you're thinking about the investments that will support this ABM effort. And chances are pretty good that the effort you've already put in to create bespoke content for your direct mail, for your ads, you can then reuse digitally on your website to tailor the experience. Now, there's another thing we hear often when people are talking about driving leads to sales as it relates to their websites. That thing we hear is that testing and personalization are two different things. We often see them set up as separate teams, separate goals, and separate budgets. We typically test to find a better way of engaging all the people we touch. A/B testing, for example, leads us to a better website. But why do we do testing in the first place? It's a means to an end. And the end is delivering more revenue, more customers, and more leads to sales. Now let's look at personalization. ABM is focused on personalization. When we personalize, we're typically looking to find a better way to engage a segment or a specific account. We may look to treat prospects differently than existing customers, or high-value prospects different than low-value prospects. But what's our end goal? It's the same one, to drive our business. And so I believe testing and personalization are both means to the same end, namely growing our business. And I think we should think about them together. Now, today, testing one idea takes some time, often more than we would like. And when we personalize, as we talked about earlier with ABM, we're often using rules today. We can combine rules-based personalization and testing to find the right message for each segment. Probably not for each visitor, but each segment. And doing this is great because we're using data segment by segment. It's also pretty rough because it takes longer, often a lot longer than A/B testing to find the right message for each segment. You know, finding the right message for 10 different segments will typically take 10 times as long as an A/B test because we're splitting up the traffic so much. Now, we can use machine learning to break this constraint. Depending on the type of machine learning we're using, we can test a bunch of ideas in parallel. We can literally learn more from every impression. We can also move from optimizing for predefined set of segments to optimizing down to the individual person or individual account without needing a huge amount of traffic. I hope conceptually these resonate, and I wanted to turn to some specific examples that I hope give you idea, inspiration for you to use back in the office when you're done with this webinar on how you can go push more of your prospects through your funnel. So let's talk through some examples of the things you can do to drive more prospects further through the funnel and practically apply these principles. So how many people in this webinar are accountable for downstream leads, like sales qualified leads or stage 2 leads? You can raise your hand in the comfort of your desk right in front of your computer. Now, how many of you have had the experience of optimizing and personalizing your website through ABM or through personalization in general and generating more marketing qualified leads off the website, but not enough additional sales qualified leads further downstream? Again, you can raise your hand in the comfort of your own desk. We had a customer, Looker, who tried a bunch of personalization ideas and found success. They drove 30% more marketing qualified leads from their website, and that turned into an increase of 15% more downstream sales qualified leads. 15% more leads was good. Sales was happy. But they didn't love the increase in unqualified leads. Looker then looked at what on-website activity correlated with becoming a downstream sales qualified lead. We and Looker both sought the channel through which the prospect was attracted to the website, like organic search or paid social, would have been a great indicator of the likelihood to become a sales qualified lead. Turns out that good common sense was just not borne out in their data. Instead, they found that the content or offer a prospect engaged with correlated with whether or not they became a downstream lead. So they shifted their machine learning personalization to optimize for multiple goals at once, each with the different value. They used machine learning to optimize for total value across these goals, where the content that correlated more highly with becoming a downstream sales qualified lead was given a higher value, and the content that correlated less with becoming a downstream sales qualified lead was given a lower value. This approach led to 44% more downstream sales qualified leads. Sales really like that. And at the same time, they got 16% fewer overall leads coming from the website. Sales love that because it meant they were getting more of what they want and less of what they didn't want. So if you can correlate on-website account activity with downstream lead creation and then optimize for those activities, it can be a powerful tool for account-based marketing. Another idea that we alluded to briefly before is to stoke the competitive juices of a prospect visiting your website by showing them that their competitors are your customers. Now, here's an example of this mocked up on Amplitude's website. This could be anybody's. But like if a visitor showed up on Amplitude's site today, this is the website they'd see. Now imagine, earlier I said I worked for United. Let's say I work for JetBlue, and they go to Amplitude's site. Wouldn't it be great if I could see this? Wouldn't it be great if 3 of the logos were my competitors, Southwest, Alaska, and United in this case? That would help me justify buying Amplitude to my boss by saying our competitors do it. It would probably help get my competitive juices flowing. And it would give me social proof that peers are using Amplitude. Now, this is a mock-up. It's not Amplitude's real site. I have no idea if these companies are Amplitude customers. And to do this in practice, you would use one of several tools on the market that do reverse IP lookup to know what account that visitor is from. Once you know their company, you'll then use a vendor to enrich that company information to know what industry they're in. In advance, you map your customer logos to industry, and then you show some of them in the logo farm. Now, I would suggest not making all of the logos into their competitors because that probably seems creepy. But a few feels like serendipity. Now, if you know what company I'm with and what industry I'm in, there's more we can do to personalize our B2B websites for different accounts. We can tailor the case studies we show to make them more relevant to each individual visitor, even if we don't have a case study exactly in that industry. This is an example from Mixpanel's website. These are actual pages on their site. They already have these case studies in place. Now imagine if you could show the right one to each visitor. Would that drive more prospects further down the funnel? Another idea. One of the most impactful things we've seen customers do is treat high-value prospects differently than low-value prospects. Let's look at a fictitious example I mocked up on 8x8's website. This is their real homepage, and the next two screenshots are made up to illustrate the point. What if you knew a particular visitor was from a low potential value account? You might know this because you did predictive lead scoring. You might know this because you set up rules based on company revenue or employee count and decided which companies are low value. Now let's suppose you offer self-serve sign-up and you offer an option to talk to sales. Which would you want to direct your low value leads to? Sales obviously wants to talk to the higher value leads, not the lower value leads. And so for a low value lead, you could remove the number for sales in the nav bar. You see that green circle up top. You could remove contact sales and request a quote options from the right rail, there where that circle is. You could change the call to action in the upper right from request a quote to free 30-day trial. In short, you could guide lower value leads to self-serve rather than taking valuable sales time. Now, what if you knew a visitor was high potential value? You could do the opposite. You could change learn more and 30-day trial calls to action to both lead to contacting sales. We had one adventurous customer who went further and literally removed the pricing page from the top nav so that high-value prospects would have to call sales. Now, personalizing based on the value of a prospect to your business can have a big positive impact on sales. Another technique that we've seen used in account-based marketing and in personalization overall that can have a big positive impact is trying a lot of ideas at once. Without AI, it can be hard to test a lot at once on typical B2B traffic, which is never a lot. You can spend time prioritizing ideas and choosing the ones you want to test on a page, like Looker's doing in this example. You can then split traffic evenly between your existing website and the new idea, and you typically wait weeks or months to get an answer. And during that time, you can't change anything on the site to avoid invalidating the test. You actively monitor for negative indicators so you can stop the test if new ideas materially hurt performance. And once you've reached statistical significance, you review the results and you try the next idea. What if you were able to accelerate that? If you used AI, it can become a lot easier to try a lot at once. And let's look at what's different. First, you can test all of your ideas in parallel, all at once, like Looker's doing in this example, tailoring the experience for each account in the moment, from the one-to-one all the way to mass market. AI can then help by automatically sending more traffic to higher performing variations and protecting you against ideas that turned out to be poor performers because they automatically get starved of traffic. You can add and remove ideas anytime, like real-life marketing, where you're talking about ideas all the time. And you can typically see insights in hours or days, enabling you to refine ideas regularly based on learnings. I hope you found this discussion of various levels of ABM, several myths we hear about ABM, and some practical ideas to activate personalization on your website to advance your ABM goals useful. We have time for some questions in the live event if you have them. And if you have more questions about how to practically personalize your site to activate ABM, I'm on Twitter at GYALIF or on email at guy@intellimize.com. Thanks for joining.